Alright, welcome to class. This is lesson 28, and today we're going to learn reflexive pronouns. So I think this is a little bit difficult, so we'll probably wind up taking more than our usual amount of time. Actually, when you look at the pages, we have two pieces of paper. So this is lesson 28 continued, and I've inserted this picture in here because I don't know how to draw in the computer. So I hope you like this lesson, and maybe somebody out there will be able to help me with drawing in the computer so I can improve this lesson in the future. In any case, we have reflexive pronouns. So the problem is that we don't even know what reflexive pronouns are in Spanish. So that's the part of the problem. But the formula is right here, okay? The verb plus the reflexive pronoun. So the important thing we need to know is that this is the opposite of Spanish. In Spanish, the reflexive pronoun goes before the verb. And the second thing is we don't know how to recognize a reflexive pronoun and differentiate it from a direct object or an indirect object pronoun. So that's where our confusion starts. So I have a couple of different explanations here. You can read them in Spanish. So this is the reflexive pronoun. Me levanto en la mañana, te bañas antes de ir al trabajo. Henry se afeita cada mañana. Diana y yo nos preparamos para el día. Ellos se alistan para la reunión. Entonces pueden ver que el pronombre reflexivo va antes del verbo en español. En inglés va a ir después del verbo. Okay, so these are the reflexive pronouns right here. So me is going to be myself. Te is going to be yourself. Se is going to be himself when it's a man. And when it's a girl, then it's going to be herself. And then in nos is going to be ourselves. And then os is going to be yourselves. And then we have, of course, themselves. And then if you use the impersonal oneself, and then for an object, itself. So those are the the reflexive pronouns in English. So let's read this. In English, the reflexive pronouns follow the verb. They are. So great. So this is wonderful. So let's take a look at our sentences here. Okay. I told myself, this can't be happening. I told myself, this can't be happening. So I'll help you out with the translation because I think this is not really easy. Me dije, so it's past tense right there. So the reflexive action is when you do something to yourself, or one does something to oneself. So here's the reflexive pronoun, okay, and here's the past tense dije, and here's me, okay. Me dije, esto no puede estar ocurriendo. Ahora bien, solo voy a decir así parentéticamente que la coma aquí y los signos de citación, ¿verdad? Las comillas aquí que están aquí están correctos. Vas a ver que el punto está dentro de las comillas. Así se hacen en inglés. El español es el contrario, ¿verdad? Van fuera de las comillas, ¿verdad? Pero entonces en inglés el punto va dentro de las comillas. Así que eso es parentéticamente. Number 2, you dressed yourself before breakfast. You dressed yourself before breakfast. So we have past tense, so it's going to be te vestiste antes del desayuno. Okay, I hope you got that. Number 3, he got himself up and got into the shower. He got himself up and got into the shower. So the get up es el verbo, ¿verdad? Es levantar. Himself, levantarse. Alright, so eso es lo difícil porque tenemos aquí preposición o adverbio, no sé, ¿verdad? Entonces la regla es que agregamos una preposición al verbo y entonces se hace otro verbo. Pero mira dónde ponemos el pronombre reflexivo. Lo ponemos entre el verbo y la preposición. Entonces uno no esperaría eso, pero así es en el inglés. Así que ojo, ojo, ojo con eso. Ok, entonces él se levantó y entró a la ducha. Alright, good. Number 4. She bathed herself after her workout. She bathed herself after her workout. Okay, so I'm going to let you translate that because I hope you can get it by now. Number 5. We got ourselves ready for the day. We got ourselves ready for the day. Go ahead and translate that. Number 6. They prepared themselves for the meeting. They prepared themselves for the meeting. Number 7, Mario shaves himself every morning. Shaves. Mario shaves himself every morning. Okay, so if the action can be done to oneself, then you can make it a reflexive construction. All right, very good. So let's look at our vocabulary, and then I have a continuation page that we'll look at. Vocabulary 21 words and phrases, total to date 433. Bathe oneself, past tense, bathe. Okay, so it's more common that you're going to hear take a bath. You're not going to hear bathe oneself much. You're going to hear take a bath. Okay, so breakfast, breakfast. Evening, evening. So you're seeing 3 syllables. You're hearing 2. Evening. Good. Every, every. So really, you just kind of hear 2 syllables there. Every. Get oneself up. Herself, himself. Lunch, lunch. Meeting, meeting. Morning, morning. Myself. Night. Noon. Oneself. Ourselves. Ready, readied. Shave oneself, and then past tense, shaved, and then shower. Okay, so we're going over here in the second column. Themselves, work out, and then yourselves. Alright, so let's take a look at this little box. This will help us to understand reflexive pronouns. So reflexive pronouns are like this. Okay, so we've all heard of the active voice. Okay, so that with the active voice, the subject does an action, the verb is an action, and the object receives the action. Okay, so I think we went over this in lesson 3. So you can refer back to lesson 3 to see that. So we haven't studied the passive voice in English, but the passive voice, so passive is just the opposite of active, right? So you'd expect the arrow to go the opposite direction. So the subject here receives the action, and the verb still is the action, but it's not an object, it's an agent. So the agent is what does the action to the subject. So for example, I am saved by the blood of Jesus. Okay, so I receive the action of salvation, and the agent of salvation is the blood of Jesus. So all right, let's look at so this is the middle voice. Okay, so the middle voice is when a subject does an action to itself. So that's what we have. So it's like it's half active voice and it's half passive voice, because it's like the active voice in that the subject does the action, and it's like the passive voice in that the subject receives the action. So it goes out and then it comes around and it comes back and acts upon the subject. So that's what we have with these reflexive pronouns. We have a middle voice. Alright, so let's look at this a little while. Now, I've never been accused of being an artist, so I don't know if I'm going to be offered an art contract here, but I don't know how to draw in the computer. So I drew this on a board and took a picture of it, and it's summer here in the United States, so while I'm doing these lessons, so I'm wearing my t-shirt and I'm not in front of students, so I'm a little bit informal today, but that's me. Alright, so this drawing here is me. I don't know if you can tell that that's me, and I'm looking at a mirror. If maybe you can't tell that this is a mirror. So I'm looking at myself. So the action reflects upon the actor, me. Okay, so the reflexive voice. This is a good example of what reflexive voice is. Pastor Miguel se mira. Okay, now forget about this guy right here. We're talking about the drawing. Okay, the drawing is looking at himself. See the arrow there between the two of them? I hope you can make that out. I don't know about the quality of this. So then we also want to look at what are called transitive verbs. Okay, so reflexive verbs and reflexive pronouns are intransitive. So what the heck does that mean? Transitive and intransitive. Well, it's actually not that difficult. A transitive verb transits to the object. So it starts here on the subject, it goes across the bridge is the verb, and it gets to the object. So the majority of the sentences follow this pattern. Subject, verb, object. Okay, now in Guatemala there's this one bridge that goes over the barranco, over the canyon that is there, that I used to drive over all the time. It went from zone 6 to zone 18 and zone 17. So I lived in zone 18 and 17, so I was really interested in this bridge. So they kept saying while I was there for years, they were saying that eventually this bridge, it was made there in the 1950s, is going to fall down someday because it was old, it wasn't made for the workload of so many cars, and so it was going to fall down. So I was always worried about it going to be falling down. So here's the bridge. This is zone 6. And this is zone 17, 18, right? On one side of the freeway, on one side of the highway, zone 18, and on the other side of the highway, zone 17, okay? So part of the bridge fell down. Well, this car is not going to get to the other side, okay? So this is an intransitive verb. It shoots out from the subject, and it stops right there. Here's the verb. Doesn't get to any object at all. So that's an intransitive. So you can see the annotations here. I hope this helps you understand what is a transitive verb. And so reflexive pronouns and reflexive verbs are intransitive verbs. They're not the only ones. There's other intransitive verbs, but just to give you a little bit of idea of the grammar that's involved with this. So in Spanish, you actually have two positions for the reflexive pronouns. And that is position number 1. Okay, like for example, this is a reflexive construction. Me veo bien. Okay, so this position number 1, the pronoun is me. But if I want to be emphatic about it, then I'll say me veo a mí bien. So this is pronoun number 1 or position number 1, and this is pronoun number 2. It's the same thing. It doesn't add any meaning whatsoever. The only thing it adds is emphasis, right? So in Spanish, the first position is normal and needed, and the second position only adds emphasis, and it's optional. Okay, so but in English we've only got one position. We don't have two positions. We don't have an emphatic position. So what are you going to do? So when you see this, for example, me veo a mí bien, in English you're going to say, I see myself looking good or well. Okay, so you're just going to translate the one position, myself, and this gets no translation. Because in English, we don't have the second or emphatic reflexive pronoun. Okay, great. So let's look at the formation of these words. Here are our reflexive pronouns. These words are compound words. Okay, so they're made of self, and then we have the plural, selves. Okay, so this is the only time that you're going to have a second person plural right here. Vosotros mismos, right? Yeah, alright, we'll look at it. It doesn't say vosotros mismos, but that's the translation. So this is the only time you're going to know from the word itself that you have a plural, a second person plural. And the reason why is not the verb, it's the pronoun. Since it's a compound pronoun, it comes from the word self. Since self is pluralized, can be pluralized, here's the plural, selves, then you're going to have a plural. So that's one interesting thing about the formation of these words. The second interesting thing about the formation of these words is that what are you using to form them? In the first person and second person, you're using the possessive adjectives, right? This is lesson 2, my, your, possessive adjectives, right? And in this first person and second person plural, again, what are you using to form it? The possessive adjectives. Both of these are possessive adjectives. Then I put over here on as a second column, this is third person singular, and this is third person plural. I want you to notice these are not the possessive adjectives. This is the direct object pronoun. And so is this the direct object pronoun. Yeah, I know it can also be an adjective, but if you look at the pattern here, you would realize that this is the direct object pronoun. Look at this, third person plural. Is that the possessive adjective, or is that the direct object pronoun? It's the direct object pronoun. Okay, so you know, this is kind of confusing. You know, a lot of time Americans make mistakes with this. What you're looking at right here about the third person singular and plural with the reflexive pronouns, it's a common mistake that people would make. Alright, well, I can't believe it. We finished the lesson, and I'm just astonished. We did it within 15 minutes, which is the longest I've ever taught in one of these lessons. I really was expecting to go on maybe about 20 minutes, but we're done. Now this lesson I think is pretty tough, so be patient with yourself. and keep working on it, listen at it, and then as always, with practice you're going to get it. So we'll see you in the next time on lesson 29.